Hello, Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to the Spicy Brain podcast. Where we're navigating neurodiversity with curiosity, joy, and
Radical acceptance.
High kick.
So welcome if you're new. We're so happy you're joining us and you found us. This is so exciting.
So many new listeners. Oh my gosh.
I know.
exciting.
It's been really fun to see that. And then, if you're, one of our longtime listeners, we love you because, oh my gosh, you guys have supported us throughout this whole, I think we're almost at a 2-year journey now of doing these. And you said, I think we're on our 86th episode or 87th.
This is 87.
Whoa.
And they are our OGs.
OG people. We love you guys so much.
They keep clicking on our podcast for some reason. We
I
so
know.
appreciate it.
Yeah. And sometimes we're funny, but sometimes we're not, We're we're not professionals at this. We do our best, but we're just
We're just sisters.
Yeah, that's what
Which
we
I
do.
think I think our podcast needs to be the Spicy Brain colon.
Yeah.
We're not professionals. We're just sisters.
Yeah, because we talk a lot about technical things, right? Like we talk about ADHD a lot on this because we do it from the framework of other people who are the experts, right?
Yeah.
So we're always like looking at a book, listening to a book or reading a book, and then trying to like dig into that brain of yours or mine. And then if there's strategies we find from the book or from our lives, we try to impart those too. Although I don't
Highlight
know that.
them, maybe.
Highlight, yeah, like mildly discuss / suggest because we don't know what is going to work for you and your ADHD-ness or me and my neurospiciness. So we always discuss. So this book, though, that we're doing is The Essential Guide to Raising Complex Kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you had the name of the author, or I did. Let's see. Was it Elaine?
Elaine Taylor-Klaus.
Elaine Taylor-Klaus. So, and the whole idea of this was we had been asked to, can you do a parenting if you're parenting somebody with ADHD? And so they didn't ask for this specific book, but I was looking at the different books. And what I liked about this is it's really about people who have chronic kids, right, who have chronic things that you as a parent are trying to help them navigate. So it could be anything, right? Anxiety, learning disabilities, sensory processing, autism, depression, right? She has a whole list, including metabolic ones like juvenile diabetes and celiacs. And I sort of liked that idea that this isn't something that's going to go away.
Yeah.
For the kid. And I like that as a parent to know too, it's not something you're trying to fix.
Right.
I think you mentioned that last time that you're not going to make these things disappear. It's always going to be something that the kid is having to deal with.
Yeah. And that I think in the past, we've always tried to fix the problem as opposed to how do we adapt to the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even I think even just saying how do we fix the problem? It's not a problem. It's a problem because we live in a neurotypical world.
Right.
But it's just a difference that your kid has or you have. And we're trying to figure out what's the best way to navigate and how to mitigate, the challenges. And one of the things that I love about this is that, when we're talking about parenting a complex kid, that kid is ultimately going to grow up to be an adult. And so me as an adult, you out there who have some spiciness in your brain, if you're listening right now, we have to take ownership of our complex issues and parent ourselves because that's ultimately what every parent is trying to teach their kid to be self-sustainable. So every child ultimately becomes a parent for themselves because they have to be. That's kind of the whole point of growing up. And so in this, which I really like, is that yes, we're talking about parenting, but I think it's also, you can still listen to all of this even if you don't have a child, such as myself, except for my ADHD pug, which totally is ADHD. But to look at it, I'm taking it from my stance of saying, okay, I'm looking at these things and thinking how do I be better with myself? How do I act as a better quote unquote parent, because it's more like the adulting, right? We've been talking about this phrase of what is adulting. Adulting is parenting yourself. That's
Oh,
really
I
all it
love
comes
that.
down to.
I love that. Yeah, parenting yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
so I think this applies for everybody. But so as we're going through this, we're going to be talking through a couple of like the areas that she talks about, because last week we got a little sidetracked.
Well, you're trying to like do the producer side, right?
Yeah.
Which is so great. And then means that the rabbit holes, but this is, I think, what people love.
Yeah, they love
They
the rabbit
love to
holes.
see you try to derail me on any topic. I mean, I don't think you're even trying. I don't mean it like that, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they love to see like where it actually goes and where I'm trying to start us from and finish. And I've
Like,
learned to breathe through it more than I used to be able to. So I love it.
yeah. And it's but so this is like exciting, and I'm feeling really excited about like us working through this. And so thank you guys for being on the journey and helping me to learn to take control and power of my voice and my creativity. So as we go through, we're going to go through some like steps. I want you guys, if you have ADHD and don't have a kid, I want you to be thinking about these questions from your own point of view as well. So do you notice this in yourself? Just as much as if you have a kid, do you notice it in your kid? So if we're saying kid, think about yourself too.
Yeah. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up though, as a parent from the parent side is, and we talked about this last time, is just how lonely it can be to parent a kid who's complex if you don't have other people in your parenting community who also have complex kids. Because, there's all these developmental milestones that are supposed to be hit and things that you should be doing is a lot of what we talked about last time. So I just want to kind of like understand for anybody who's a parent out there too, to know that that's a very real feeling of feeling scared for your kid or worried about the future. And this book's really, I mean, we're going through it chapter by chapter, so we don't always know until we get to the end. And we all have like, you and I both have these like, oh, that's what they meant, kind of things, so we're interpreting what we understand from what we're listening to or reading. And so, bear with us, right?
Michelle, I feel like there's going to be a ping pong effect that's going to happen with this book, because you just said something that really struck out to me. It feels very lonely being an adult with ADHD, because I don't know many other adults who are ADHD. And so parenting myself is very lonely.
So
I
it's
think
like the idea of community really matters.
so important.
Yeah.
So important.
That we're not alone, that we can find each other. So when we're having those tough days of parenting our kid or parenting ourselves, that we have someone to rely on a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm going
Yeah.
to be interested to see, like, as we're going through this, if I bring up something, how does that relate to you when you think about parenting? And if you say something, how does it relate to me? Like, I'm really
Yeah.
excited about this book, actually. Like,
I know,
much more so than I thought I would be.
Yeah, we're getting curious, which is always the fun part.
Yeah.
So in chapter 1, she says the quote, which I think this is really interesting. This kid's really smart, but. And I kind of, that resonated with me about you as a kid growing up, as well as with my son.
Yeah.
So I think this idea of that somebody isn't bright that has complex issues is just such a misconception. It's actually usually the other way, where they're so bright and gifted that it's, I always say this, like, the hardest kids to teach are not the developmental kids that don't, that are struggling. It's the ones who are gifted. And so I run a math program, and I have gifted kids that we hire, and then they're trying to help kids who are struggling a little bit with the math. And I'm like, the people I have the hardest time with are not the kids who are struggling with the math. It's my staff, of student staff, because they're like, you got to keep them busy. You know what I mean? You got to keep them on task, on track, or they just go, and probably a lot of them are having these complex issues potentially as well. So it's really interesting to me. But she talks about these 6 main challenge areas, and I thought I'd just bring them up for us so we can think them through. I know you read through it, but I'll go through it in my list way, and then you can derail us whichever way you want us to go. But so it's like she's saying, like, your kids are struggling and so are you. This is this book. It's like you feel like these challenges and that you're facing are like really daunting, right? Because that's what it can feel like when you're not sure where to start with things, right? And it can be terrifying because you're like, it's affecting every aspect of family life. Like when you have, and I remember you coming into the world and mom saying you like were like a butterfly when you were 2. You know, like you were a very quiet baby. You like slept through the night. You like had no, like there wasn't anything complex about you as a baby. And then all of a sudden you turned 1.5 or 2 and you became this beautiful butterfly is how she describes it, which I love that analogy. And yet it did change the dynamic of our family structure as the things you were needing were becoming more apparent. And I think that was true with Josh as well. Like it changed everything because the day just, you know, any routines were not routine.
Yeah.
It was hard to establish routines and the emotions that came with it. So one of the challenge areas she says that, you know, you might look at is like, is there emotional management challenges in your family life? And she brings up these challenge areas because she's like, you're not going to fix them all at once. So you got to prioritize and figure out like which one resonates with you most. So I'm going to read this too, and you tell me if this makes sense with your experience, Meg. That people are quick to anger, or they might be painfully shy. They might be really like have trouble with rule following, or quick to brush things off and take things personally, right? Like really like brush it off, or they take it super personally. They struggle with the highs and the lows. Like they seem all over the place potentially. They fly off the handle when they hear no. And this is for like younger kids specifically, I think. It could be though, our adult selves as well. Yeah. And can't handle when others don't follow the rules. Like so very rule oriented potentially. And like somebody else, no, they didn't follow the rules. They didn't do what they were supposed to be doing. So I was kind of curious. And the way she said is like they struggle with emotional self-regulation. So it's like when something's happening that's unexpected, maybe then things get, you know, go off the handle. And I can feel that for myself sometimes too. So it's like when it's happening really regularly, I think. What do you think about when you hear that?
I really hate it when like others get away with things that I can't get away with.
Oh,
it makes me so angry. I'm like, why do they get to get away with it and I have to follow the rules? And like, it just seems like I'm supposed to, because I'm working twice as hard as everybody else.
Yeah.
And it really gets me going, people. I'm moving around in my chair right now because I'm so annoyed. It really does bother me.
Yeah.
Because like, there's all these rules that I'm supposed to follow as an ADHD person in order to be normal, but then the normal kids they can get away with all this stuff because they're normal. And it's like, bleh. So there's my emotional management issue right there, just plain and simple.
And as a parent, the way that I saw that kind of come about when Josh was younger was this fixation on rules sometimes. Like that wasn't what was supposed to happen and they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and like telling me about it a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like they were talking about it a lot. I think for some of the other kids I know it's like just not engaging at all. Like I know the whole like emo thing is something that people talk a lot about now, emotion, you know, and so I think it can like really manifest itself different ways. But I remember the rule following, and I remember you being incensed about it as a kid too, like just really upset that the things, and we're like, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they're like, no, it matters.
It does.
It matters. Yeah.
Well, it matters because we are in this world that we have to create rules in order to act normal, quote unquote. And you know, like the things that we want to do, our natural impulses are not normal. Like I remember Michelle, like when you and I think like in our 20s, like we're like driving up California 1.
Oh yeah, that was so fun.
We took our trip together. And
we were like in a camp, and then we did it like one time, and we're like, called
Never
my then husband
again.
and we're like, get us hotels. Like, we can't do this. We're not capable of this.
We're princesses. We cannot.
We just thought it was gonna be so romantic. Like
We
you know what
did.
I mean? We romanticized it so much of like,
Yeah.
oh my God, we're gonna go we're gonna glamp, and
Yeah,
then it was
well,
like you were great at putting
glamping
all
wasn't
the
a
stuff.
thing. Michelle,
No,
glamping wasn't a thing
but
at
in
that
our
point.
minds, I think that's what we
Yes.
thought it was gonna be like. It was like
Yeah.
we were gonna get there and we were gonna be like wearing pith helmets.
I know.
You know what I mean? And there was gonna be like a soft breeze, and there were porta potties and like people,
And, like,
loud
flies.
music and flies, and we were like, this
And
is
dirt.
not. This is not us at all.
I still like want
Obviously,
glamp.
we didn't pick the right places either. So we appreciate, our friend Heather, who, has helped us produce at times. Like she has figured it out with her. He loves the outdoors. So they have figured out the glamping part. But oh my gosh. Anyway,
It's so fun.
So
I remember us, like, there was some
gosh.
we were getting some croissants one day, and like, it was like you had a chocolate croissant, and
Yes.
I don't remember what I got, but like you had like a little something on your lip, and so I said to you, like, Michelle, you've got some chocolate on your lip, and you're like, Megan.
No, but
I
you
need to-
didn't say it like that.
Well, in my head I said it like that.
But like everything for you is like a little bigger. That, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like you were like, and it was a very quiet cafe. Okay. And it was just
Set
like
the tone,
us,
set the
it was
mood,
us
Michelle.
sitting there. It was us sitting there. It was a very quiet cafe, and it was like, morning, and I was tired already, right? And you were like, Michelle, you got chocolate on your lip, and I'm like, and like people like looked at our table.
They did it. Come
They
on.
did.
Really?
Yes. Because it was so much louder than like what was happening. And it was, I don't know. Anyway.
So
But,
then you proceed to tell me about how, there's like a certain way, like you were like kind of, I remember I don't know if you were frustrated or if you were just like, taken aback but you were like, I need to teach you, like, this is not okay. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not okay to tell us? Like, Megan, you can't just like blurt this out. And I was like, what do you mean you can't just blurt this out? And she's like, well, it's like when you're with your girlfriends. And I was like, what do you mean with my girlfriends? Like, I don't understand.
I don't have
She's like,
any
Megan,
girlfriends.
she's like, well, it's like the girl code, Megan. And I'm like, what the hell's a girl code? Like, what? I didn't know any of this stuff. I'm like in my 20s. And I was like, no wonder I have no girlfriends. And she's like, you have to like, just be a little bit less, I
was like, just point to the lip, the area, right? Like point to something and say like, hey, and like note to it them without saying it loudly. Yes.
And then
has it helped you?
I mean, I don't know. Like maybe I just
remember me.
It did,
It's
but
helped you with
now,
me,
Michelle, I love you, but I'm totally gonna call you out because now I'll like look to you and I'll be like, I'll point to something, and then you just like don't even know, and I'm like, Michelle, like pointing really, because like you don't care. It's like, we're like, we don't care, like we're happy with life, like whatever. There's something on our
50s
face.
is great. Like I don't care. Yeah,
You just
absolutely.
don't care.
Yeah.
So long story, even longer.
Yes.
Like these rules, like there are these rules that are in societal rules that are in place. And so I fixate on them because I'm like, oh, I have to remember them in order to like be normal.
Yeah. And I think I was kind of like, in a way, it was a little bit of being like worried about you for the future. Like for some reason, I thought like you needed girlfriends or something. Like, I don't know. Not like that's been like the easiest thing in my life. So I think you have found wonderful women who are completely cool with who you are. And I have now found that as well. And I don't think I was in that state either. I was with a lot of people who had like, there was ways to be, right? And that was sort of, so I'm also glad to let it go.
But also that's the society we live in, right? Like, luckily, like you and I have done a lot of work and, shifted that element of our lives, but like a lot of people are still in that. So, like, guys, if you're ADHD, apparently there are rules out there. There are rules of engagement.
Well, and I think that's why kids get fixated, like you were saying, because it's like, wait a minute, this rule is for this, but this is for that, and I don't understand why I have to
Yeah.
follow these rules, and these other people, there's these rules that I think
Like
they
this
should be
other
following, and they're
kid,
not.
they
Yeah.
blurt it out and they seem to still have friends. Like, what's the difference? Like, well, they're the cool kid. I'm like, wait, but what? There's a rule for the cool kid and a rule not for me? Like, it's
Yeah.
so.
So
So I would
confusing
just say,
and
like, if I
exhausting.
was, yeah, it's exhausting. And if I was a parent talking to myself or telling my kid, I would just say, look, yes, there are these like rules, these quote unquote rules. And like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, only follow them if it's important to you. Like if it's a person that you love, like that you care about, that you want to like, you know, connect with, and they're asking you, you know,
Yeah.
for that boundary or that rule, then like, okay, that's a rule that like you get to decide, like, is that a friendship that you want to have? But like you should never have to change yourself. However, sometimes it does make it easier. So yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah. And I think also, like, is it that you're not self-regulating, or is it that you're in an impossible situation?
Yes.
Right? Like, because I think, you can box anyone into a corner and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to come out maybe fighting, right? And so if like you feel like everything about your life is friction, everything has an annoyance, everything has, something hard about it, then you may not have the emotional energy to regulate, So it's
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know. That's
Well,
an interesting one, but I can see
the
it from the parent point of view where it's just hard to manage it. It's like, what are you supposed to be managing? How do you know, like when somebody's flying off the handle, like why they're flying off the handle when they're pre they're not able to describe yet. They don't have the words yet because they're young, right?
mm-hmm.
They're little and they don't always have the words yet to describe why they're feeling the way they're feeling or what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And so it can be really overwhelming as a parent because you're like, okay, they have all this stuff going on, but they're 5 and they don't yet know how to process it, and you don't know how to process it sometimes with
Well, and
them.
that's, I mean, I think that's where for me, like I understand the quick to fly off in anger. But I also understand the shy part because like I'm painfully shy in the very
Mm,
beginning.
mm.
Once I so people get confused about me because they're like, you seem like very quiet, but then all of a sudden, like you just, like you were saying, like I was a really quiet kid for the first 2 years, like year and a
Yeah,
half, and then I
yeah,
just came out of,
yeah.
I
You felt
came,
comfortable, and you were like, "Oh, okay, now I'm here." Yeah,
let me hear.
absolutely.
I,
I
you
think
know,
I think I have that too, though, a bit where like somebody doesn't. I'm not gonna like let somebody know every part of me right away, right?
yeah.
And so like there's an element of that.
But I was gonna say like pre-verbal, you know, my thinking, like the first place I would go is how do we help them regulate? So they're not going to understand what regulation is.
Mm-mm.
And I remember like when we were with like whenever I would with Josh and he would just like get really, you know, out of control, like he just be like have his moment, right? He have whatever anger. I would just go over, I would take him and I'd walk around and I would just talk to him and literally just describe everything I was looking at
Mm-hmm.
with like great detail of like, this is a like look at this purple cup, and the purple cup is metal and it has a lid that's
Mm-hmm.
plastic on the lid, and oh, the lid has a little thing that says Yeti on it, and this part's black, and look at how it moves. And I would just say it in a really
Mm-hmm.
calm voice, but
Mm-hmm.
basically just like helping them know, like I don't know, just soothing the soothing voice that's just like, I'm not worried about your emotion. You can have your emotion, but I'm just going to keep talking to you like I normally do. I'm not going to change the way that I would deal with you and make this anything more than it actually is. And
Yeah.
it's similar to when you see somebody who's in a panic attack or anxiety filled,
Mm-hmm.
where you say to them, like,
Yeah.
hey, name 5 things that are red in the room,
Yeah.
and it forces them back into the moment and it grounds them.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is when you're saying that, like from the parenting point of view, it usually is happening when you're trying to get them to like get their shoes on or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like there is a task that is needing to be done. And I always laugh
Mm-hmm.
because I think Josh, because like parenting is just tasks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's love and it's all those things, but it's like endless number of things that need to be done for whatever reason, right? Like, and it maybe it doesn't need to be done, but it's definitely like what, you're trying to get done usually, right, with somebody. So you're trying to get somebody to school, right? That is a series of steps that have to happen. And so those steps, what I always like laughed was as soon as I was rushed, as soon as I was harried, as soon as I was not calm. And you know, I remember like with you growing up, it was like very difficult. And we weren't easy on you, and you were not, it wasn't an easy situation, right?
Yeah.
Because there was never both shoes. There was usually one sock and like, you know, a pair of underwear in your hand walking out the door. So like sometimes there were pants and sometimes there weren't. You were little, you know what I mean? And so it was like there was all these things happening, and I would get worked up because I was there I mean, it was not a fair situation to me, frankly, but like parents were already at work and I'm trying to get you into a carpool or whatever, right? That happened. And as a parent, I kept that level of anxiety I had as like a 10-year-old trying to get my little sister out to school. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't learn any other different behavior. And Josh taught it to me because he taught me that if I was going to keep acting like my 10-year-old, 12-year-old self, then we were going to have a horrible morning every single morning. And so I realized the minute I felt I had to go faster is when I had to slow down. And if that meant we were 2 minutes late for school, then we were 2 minutes late for school. Because and we, of course, never were 2 minutes late for school. We were always fine. But the minute I changed my tone, the minute I got all amped up, the minute I got whatever, it was like he was an amplifier of every emotion I ever have. Still to this day. I mean, we talked about it on the last one. Like if I'm feeling like there's something that has to get done and I'm pushing and I'm agitated or whatever, then he's an amplifier of my emotions. And so, and he feels it more deeply than I do, right? Which we've talked a lot about with kids with complex situations, especially with ADHD anyway.
And typically we're the ones being blamed for everything. So, you know, it makes you feel like, okay, well, I've clearly caused my mom to feel this way.
Yep.
I've caused my sister to feel this way, or whatever it is.
All the shoulds that we had talked about before. It's like, you should have already had your socks. You should have already had your, you know. So it really like, I have no answers to all of this other than I did learn that, you know, after, I mean, he's 18 now, right? So like I did learn, and I learned from watching you go through it and realizing like, it doesn't need to feel this way. Like it was awful for you and it was awful for everybody in the family. And that's what made it really complex. And it wasn't your fault. And it was something that your brain just doesn't do. And it would be like me saying like, oh, you should have been able to get yourself into your wheelchair and get yourself out to school or whatever, right? Like there were things that were happening for you that I didn't understand. I couldn't see. And so it was hard, right, for you though. And that wasn't fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's all then put on me as I'm the problem. We've talked a bit about like me being fully dressed and then being undressed.
Yes.
And I almost wonder if, you know, as we're looking at these things, if it's a symptom that something's wrong. Because as we are all very aware, me and like my skin is so sensitive.
So sensitive. Yes.
And so, like I have to like, so the fact that like you've gotten me dressed, right? And then I come out with no clothing on.
Right. We should have been curious, right?
Right.
We should
like
have
that's
been curious, but yeah.
And that's probably so hard as a parent because you're like, you're in the middle of it all. And so it's like finding a way like after the fact to step back and be curious, like, what am I noticing? What am I seeing? Okay, if every day she or he is walking out with their underwear in their hands, maybe the underwear doesn't feel good, or like, let's try, like, just, I think being able to try different things and see like what makes a difference, if it does make a difference. And maybe also trying, like, if you're going to try, say, different clothes, let's do it in the afternoon or the evening when there's no time commitment, or in like the weekend
when it's not
when
stressful.
There's no time. It's not stressful.
And I think also if the situation is complex for you as the parent, don't expect the siblings to figure it out. right? Like you can't expect that somebody who is a sister or a brother or a whatever, like a younger person to
Mm-hmm.
have it figured out for you. Right? Like you can't expect that of somebody just because they're older than the person that's going through it, that they're going to have this, unless you build that curiosity in as a family dynamic. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the part that to me was like, it's unfair to everybody, right? Unfair to everybody.
Yeah, because like we just didn't understand what it meant. Like we just didn't like this whole
No.
idea of like it's a disability. It is. It because of the world we live in, it is a disability. It is like
Mm-hmm.
exactly like having a kid in a wheelchair in the sense, but you just can't see the disability. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we just didn't think about it that way. And it's really it sucks. It's really hard at times. And I feel for
Yeah.
everybody.
I think when I'm thinking about it and like I'm feeling like as we're going through it, that there's feelings, right? Like there's emotions I'm having about thinking back about those times. And I think from my perspective, like as a sibling, there's so much guilt around it that really isn't mine to hold, but it does feel that. Like I feel like a sense of shame that I wasn't curious or I was contributing to something. And I think that's hard, right? To like kind of process with you because it really needs to be about it feels that there's no space as a sibling to say that this was hard to navigate without saying it was you or the problem. Does that make
Mm.
sense? Because it's like it isn't. I don't feel that. I don't feel you were the problem, but there was an issue. There was a problem, and it was hard to navigate. And you know what I mean? Like there was a problem in the communication. There was a problem in us understanding how to deal with what was happening and to make a space that was safe enough for you to be in and for me to be in and for our brother, like all that. Like there wasn't, and again it's trying to say that without like also blaming our mother or blaming, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot of blame and shame, and that feeling comes up for me when we're talking about this. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's really it's really complex. I mean, that's the best way to say it. It's complex. And I think it's okay to have your feelings and your emotions around it. And it's also okay for, you know, me to say like, gosh, it was always my fault. Like I think those can both be true at the same time, and to acknowledge that those are both true at the same time. And that I don't see personally, I don't blame you. I don't blame mom.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I blame society, and I blame the stupid things that we, the shoulds. Like, why does the kid need to go into matching shoes? Like, if there are two shoes and all they have are those two shoes, like, okay,
Yeah.
then they're not going to be matching. Like there's a lot of shoulds that get put on us. And even just like you saying, I wish I had known, that's a should. You should have known. You should have. I don't feel that way. I can still feel the sadness and the it's not just you, right? Like that's the thing, is like if it had just been only you that did it to me, then okay, maybe I might, but it was everybody. I mean, and I don't say like, I know that as an ADHD person it's easy to catastrophize, but
Mm-hmm.
in this scenario it actually was everybody. There were very few people in my life, I don't even know if I can count which ones they were,
Mm-hmm.
that just accepted me and said, hey, you're perfect just the way you are, and you don't need to change, and
Right.
you make my life better.
Mm.
That just didn't exist for me in that time. And I think it's still possible for it to not exist right now, because it's just the information is just not widespread. I mean, we still live in a society that is trying to roll back ADA rights, Americans with Disabilities Act rights. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
still in a society that is trying to say that autism can be fixed and can be avoided. And, like our bodies are just so complex. And I think there's more to life, personally. There's more to life than just, do I have a normal kid? Because I think that these differences make us interesting and they make us unique and they are us. And so if we nurture them and try not to fix it, then amazing things can happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's definitely some processing I still need to do as a sibling of somebody who had these complex issues that were going on, because it did feel like there was a job to try to make sure that you could quote unquote fit in. And that was like a worry, that was a concern, that was a thing. And I think I think oftentimes, because as a sibling, you feel like completely like there is no space for you sometimes. Like I felt that. I felt like everything had to be about making sure that the needs that you had were being met. And so I think that part of it is hard, because it isn't, again, it is this neurotypical world that like we're making these shoulds from, right? So that I totally agree with. And yet at the same time, there's definitely like this place of like, well, does anything I need matter? Right. And so it's both sides of it, of like when it's in a family dynamic, and like needing to make sure that the kids all get help, that everybody gets the support they need and can be heard, because I think everyone has complex issues, right? Everyone has complex needs. I don't think it's just you, and I think I also had my own set of things that maybe I was able to hide better, or be able to like, I don't know what the right word would be, but compartmentalize differently, mask better. Absolutely. And it wasn't like, oh, I was better off than you, right?
Yeah.
Or something, right? And so I think that's the piece that, you're the problem because you're the one that like, and I don't think you were the problem, but I think that's like the idea of like, you're the problem because you're the most obvious. And I think that's a piece that, as we look at this and going forward, I'm really, really excited to like continue to be curious about, because I hope that for me also there's healing with that, because I think they're still there. I mean, I'm hearing it in my own voice that there's like still this piece that's like, oh, like I don't think I have that completely figured out in terms of what my role was. I do feel like it helped me, and you helped me to understand. Watching you at Josh was so helpful. So if you have a complex kid, like making that community bigger, where you allow other people who have complexities to come in, because sometimes they're the exact right person to understand maybe what you don't.
I see these, I don't know if this is true, but I see these, we're watching the Durrells in Corfu.
Oh, I love that show.
There's a moment like where this
PBS.
mother, PBS, this mother who is, brand new, has a newborn, and she hands the baby off to another girl.
Yeah.
And the baby instantly stops crying.
Yes.
And I think that like that's the part where and I saw her face just like get so much more like, oh, I'm so glad that somebody else can parent my
somebody
child
else can do the
me.
thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that that's the should and the shame, is that like,
yes,
you as a parent are dealing with this 24/7.
Yes.
There is no break for you. And so if there is a human who can help you in some of these moments, like especially with the emotional regulation part.
Yes. Because it brings up every one of your own emotions. Right.
And then
it's like even talking about this with you, like I'm feeling my emotions come up. I'm feeling like all these things. And you're like, oh, okay, wait, yeah.
And what's interesting is that like I'm feeling them, and then it's actually like the more that I feel it, the more, it, like I can see as a kid, like I'm now worried. Is it me? Is it, so it's like, it sort of manifests itself.
Right.
And it's okay to have those feelings. And it's also okay to say, you know what, like I got to sit down right now, or I need to hand you off And that doesn't mean that you are any less of a parent or any less good at your job. Actually, I think it means that you're better. That you can say, you know what, this is a moment where I just need help.
I need to tap out also. And it doesn't mean you're not going to be able to go back.
Right.
Right.
It's like when I tell men, like, you know, I had a lot of men who would come into my office and they would start crying and they're just like, oh my God. I was like, look, I think that actually he's like, I'm sorry, I'm so weak. And it's like, I think that you being able to cry is the strongest thing you can do.
Yeah.
It is such strength to be able to be vulnerable and to show that. And I think it is such strength for parents to be able to say, I got to tap out and I'm okay with I'm sure it still hurts, right? It's still like, there's that part of you. It's like, I wish I could just, you know, nurture my kid in that moment. But I think it's also very strong of someone to say, you know what, I'm going to allow, like you did that. You allowed me to come in and calm Josh.
Yeah. And I was able, I think at that point, and I could totally relate to the Dural character or whatever, being like, oh, I'm so glad Megan's so good at making Josh calm and I can't calm my baby.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's still to this day true. Right. And it was always funny to me because when I was pregnant, you were like, oh my God, you're having a boy. Like, how's this ever going to work? He's never going to, I'm like, they don't come out 18. Like, you're going to have time to like connect. And also you get along with men like really, really well, you know? So, so I think that's such a lovely relationship that, you know, you have, but it was also me letting go and saying like, I know there's something I don't understand about this. And that was hard, you know, it was hard at the beginning to do that. And then it was relieving. So it's like, oh, it's not just me by myself. Like, I'm not the only one. There's a way through this. And I think you have a special gift with kids around that, but as well. And you're very accepting of it, which is, you know, such a great thing for me to always look at as a guide, right? Like, I'm the older sister, but I've learned from you so much. And this is one of those pieces. And you know, one of many things that I've learned from you, including how to, like, you know, hang my own paintings and things like that. But, you know, you have so many gifts, but I do feel like when we think about the part where we weren't doing it well, and I can imagine for anybody who's loved somebody with ADHD or had a kid with ADHD or any of the complex issues, chronic medical conditions that people are going through, there's a lot you have to forgive yourself for. And you have to start that journey of, you know, in whatever way. You don't have to, but it would be, it's helpful. So like, it's helpful for me to say on this, you know, podcast, like this is something that I'm still needing to work through, because the best version of yourself does not always come out.
Yeah.
Right. And to know at such a young age, a part of myself that I don't like looking back on was there, and trying to figure out, like, you know, what part of that do I need to keep holding on to, and what part of that can I let go of? What part of that doesn't serve us anymore in the conversations, right?
Well, I did the same thing to myself. You know, like I was just as mean to myself as probably anyone else, and probably even more. And I think it's a learned behavior, you know, that, again, societally, like we've been taught, like this is not normal or acceptable. And so, I mean, I do feel that, and I feel I've had to make a lot of amends with my inner child and like with my younger self. And apologize. I've spent like just, you know, pages and pages of like writing to my younger self just to say, like, I'm so sorry. Cause like I shoved little Rosie into a closet and said that you're not good enough and you need to go. So I was very mean to me.
Yeah.
You know, you're not alone in that cycle of it all. And as you're talking about it, another show that it reminds me of is Young Sheldon, where you've got this, you know, quote unquote genius, clearly complex issues kid, and the other kids tend to get forgotten. And so if you are a parent and you've got more than one kid, I think this is also another should, but like it's also really important that you invite the kids into the complexities
Mm-hmm.
and understand that the complexities are also going to be around them too. And it's, it's not just like a one size fits all. Like curiosity is such an important part for the family dynamic and figuring out, you're never going to do it perfectly.
Mm-mm.
And the best thing is like, no one ever does anything perfectly. So just how do you repair? And how do you teach your kids to repair? Because like I think if we had like learned how to do that at a young age, where we could have like openly, said the issue and then learned how to repair, again, something that nobody was teaching at the time.
Right.
It wasn't a thing, but like,
No. Yeah.
if I had a kid now, like I would,
Mm-hmm.
well, I mean, I try to anyways, like with my stepdaughter, but like I would be teaching them how to repair on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think the other piece of it, as I'm sitting here with you, and this really does hit on a lot of levels for me, is that emotional repair is as important with each other as it is with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And knowing, like, as a parent, anybody who's parenting and sticks with their complex kid, right? Like, I'm sure there's all kinds of people who opt out, but if you're listening to this or you're reading a book like this, it's because you care, and it's because you care deeply, and you want to do you want it to be okay. And it's
Yeah.
just maybe the way that we were trying to make it okay wasn't as helpful as maybe some other ways that I think are going to come up in this book of strategies, that there just maybe weren't as many strategies.
Yeah.
And to go like, okay, like what strategies would we have used back then, and what could have helped? Like you said, the repair piece, but like, how do you do that? And how do you know what you're supposed to be repairing about, and all of that? So I think that's kind of my hope, is that like as we continue on with this, we'll kind of delve into those a little bit more. And I I think, like, just for my sake of needing to complete something, I'm going to say what the other struggle areas are, and we'll get back to them. Okay. So there's
Yes.
5 other challenge areas, but
Okay.
obviously this emotional regulation hits for both of us really well. Okay. There's
I'm gonna be very still like a Buddha.
to be still like a Buddha for just a second. So
Do you think
there's,
that Buddha could have ever been ADHD?
oh my gosh. Yeah. Except
Do you think?
nature. I think
No.
nature. No, I think they were out in nature,
I don't. Yeah.
or they're a god or something. I don't really
Could
actually
you
know how that
imagine
works.
trying to be like a monk and you have ADHD? Oh, that must be even like harder. Okay.
We're little
Rabbit
monks.
hole. Putting
Okay.
my hands under my face. Okay.
Okay. So there's 5 other challenge areas. So it might be emotional regulation, organization. They leave a trail of things behind them and don't seem to notice. Their room is a wreck, right? They struggle with managing possessions, taking care of their responsibilities. That might be one for your family. Challenge area 3, home and school. Your child is intelligent, but may even be gifted, but still struggle with school. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Logistics. Okay.
Mm.
Routines, morning, weekend, afternoons seem to be harder. We talked about this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was interesting. Reward systems rarely work.
Mm.
Like, gold stars aren't going to work with this kid.
No, it's true.
So they struggle to use simple processes to help life run more smoothly, is the way she described it. I was like, okay, that could be an area for your family. Another one, 5, relationships. That you worry that they don't know how to keep or make or keep friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have a hard time relating to family members who don't understand them, kind of discussing that a bit. You also might be disagreeing with your co-parent a lot about how to raise your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And like, babysitters can't handle your kids, right?
Mm.
You love your kids, but it might be like difficult for them to feel connected with others. So your child struggles with relationships might be an area. And the 6th challenge area she said was impact on family and siblings. That's so funny. I didn't remember that from the last time, but this is not what you expected when you became a parent.
Yeah.
You're quote unquote waiting for things to get better. And who thought parenting would be this hard?
Right.
So you feel frustrated, disappointed, sad, guilty, or aggravated. you're exhausted. Sometimes you don't want to go home. And I wanted to say these just as it, because she talks about the concept of reframing a lot of things later on in this chapter. And I think that's what we'll probably get to as we go through these. But this idea of that we're not parenting from inspiration and curiosity, we're parenting from desperation. And I think that was, as like a sibling to you, I think I can reframe how I was thinking about this earlier conversation by saying I was feeling desperation of like trying to understand how to do the things I was being asked to do with you. And I think that it wasn't from a place of inspiration and curiosity. And I'm like so happy we've had this podcast, because I feel like it repairs little Michelle as well, to be like, that's okay. Like that's where we were at. And it wasn't ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but like we can be curious now. And I love the idea of, as a parent, also being able to like translate that into my parenting life.
Yeah. And the one thing I want to end up with is that in the last challenge area, guys, literally, if you're just listening, I had to like close my eyes and put my hands under my legs. No, it's fine. But like I did it.
Yeah, good job.
And I did it in a way that was healthy. But what I will say is I heard this is not what you expected when you became a parent. And I also want to say this is not what I expected when I thought I'd become an adult. So that's the part where, expectations, they lead to challenges. So I think probably like the less expectations you can have on the kid, like, what are your cores? Like the core expectations for being kind and, the person that you want to raise and the human being that you hope that they can become. Like, I think it's a question now of like, what expectations are really important? And then as they grow up, you can kind of figure out, okay, well, what are the other things that like they might want to do? How long did it take me to figure out like, I don't need to fold my underwear.
Yeah.
That took me a decade and a half.
And the quote I wrote down from the book was shred the shoulds.
Yep.
Shred the expectations and the shoulds. Absolutely. And I think that that is so ingrained in me that's like definitely the place that I'm trying to be most curious about for myself. Is those shoulds and expectations for Josh, right? Because you're right. Like you're absolutely fine without folding your underwear.
In fact, I'm better because I do my underwear now. I clean my underwear on a regular basis now.
Right. You're healthier, sanitary, all those things. All
that the adulting would have wanted me to do. And so it's just about and everyone's going to be different, like I think like, oh, this is the most brilliant thing and it's not going to work for others, so it's like finding what works for you. So like, I just keep going back to like, what's the kind of person like that they should be? Like if we're going to put shoulds on somebody, like what type of person do you want them to hopefully be?
And we were talking about like kind of the 4 areas. And I said it wrong on the last podcast, but I was remembering as I was going, it was like, I always want Josh to be taking care of his mind, his body, his heart, and home. And I think I said health and home, but it was his heart, because it really, him feeling good about himself and who he is as a human being is to me at the core. And when I'm shoulding all over him, that's a lot harder to do for him. Right. And so I think this particular book is going to be a deep emotional one for me, because there's so many layers of it for me. There's my like past life, there's my current life, and then there's sort of the future life that I hope I'm not future forwarding too much, because I think that's where the worry comes from as a parent.
Yeah. You can't, we try to get into our time machines and try to think of what these kids are going to look like when they're older, and you just can't predict. All you can do is be in the moment and be present and love them.
And I could never have predicted where you are now and the expectation that maybe you had for yourself or others had for you. This doesn't look anything like it, but it's so much better. Like, we actually had high expectations for you. So it wasn't like a low expectation. It wasn't like, oh my God, she's not going to make it. It was like, she's going to become a famous actor. Or she's got, like, it was very like grandiose, right? It was the other way. But it's so much better. Like, it's so much sweeter to see you where you are, and you are like happy and working on your health always and committed to staying curious about yourself. And I am so happy to be along for that part of the journey, because it's helped me to do the same. And so anyway, I just really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Spicy Brain Podcast, brought to you by Spicy Brain Studios. We just finished learning about struggling with emotional management from the essential guide to raising complex kids. Next week, we'll continue exploring the challenge areas, and we're going to start with organization. We're going to try to notice the trails our kids, and maybe ourselves, might leave behind. So be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you're enjoying the show, leave us a review. It really helps those neurospicy folks find their way here too. But until then, here's to a great end of the week, and remember to stay curious
and joyful.
Radical acceptance. High kick.